Right. All right, so welcome to Astro Roundtable number 4, and this time we're going to focus on the elements as they apply to astrology and what their theme and archetypes are all about. So when we talk about the four elements in astrology, unless you're getting into stuff that is Eastern and things that are like the Oriental version, you've got just your four basic elements: earth, air, water, and fire. And out of our wheel, there are three of each of those. We've got three fire signs, three earth signs, three air signs, and three water signs, and they each stand for different things. The earth is everything that is physical, concrete, nuts and bolts, tangible, down on the earth. And so it rules things in our world in the domain of money, work, and health. Those are the things, the physical exchange that we use to for resources and goods, the actual labor that we do, the physical service and actions, and then what they produce, and our health, which is, our body's constitution. So all of those physical elements are all earthy. And with each of these four elements, when you think of like just when people are conversation and they're like, gosh, you need to be more grounded. That quality of grounded and those metaphors are all part of this earthy elemental mix. So it's all about, this kind of down on the ground layer of reality, the 3D material manifestations, things that we can see, smell, touch, our senses. That's part of Taurus. So all of our sense world, our body, our health, how it's put together, the work that we do, the jobs we perform down in 3D reality, and then our goals, and how we achieve them in the 3D world. And there's an element to the earth that's very practical also. It's all about how to navigate the structures that exist in 3D reality. It's the most grounded level of these elements. Another element is air, and air is going to equivalent to the mental and social dimensions of life. There are some similarities and differences in these four that we're going to look at separately in a second, but air on its own, everything with Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius is related to mental and social nuances. We've got the whole mental world of our thoughts and ideas and how we think and transmit and translate ideas in writing and correspondences and communication in Gemini. And then we've got everything with um, interfacing with other people. How do we relate? How are we diplomatic? How do we engage others socially? And then the idea of, groups and combining ideas and the, kind of the hive mind mentality of Aquarius. So we've got thoughts, ideas, and then people and acquaintances that all three of these stand for. The people that we just, have conversations with and the exchange of ideas through conversation, the significant others that we partner with, and the groups and the friends and the like-minded ideals. And these three have a quality of being very analytical, rational, and we could add, logic to that mix. Weighing out the ideas, toggling between the options, and then synthesizing and thinking in brilliant, radical new ways. Um, Backing up just a hair with that, since I did touch on the signs more specifically, to go back at Earth for a second, we have that the sense, feeling, and accumulation and expression of hands on the ground and sensing and the pleasurable experiences of 3D reality in Taurus. Virgo brings the health and the maintenance of having all of our physical systems and our physical environment and our physical work orderly and hygienic, and systemized and flowing effectively. So there's that sense of effective navigation of 3D reality and a sense of maintaining. And then Capricorn is what brings in the idea of the hard work toward some type of final product, a structured finish, attainment, and accomplishment. All right, so going into our next one now, water, since we just went a little more thoroughly with air. Water is the emotional and soul components. And I didn't put the word astral, but astral, anytime we talk about emotional and soul, we're in like the astral realm as well. So our three water signs are all dealing with some part of emotions in the soul. And they're going to plug us in with our relationships, the more merged aspects with other people. There's, both air and water deal with, relating people, but there's more of a mental idea kind of interface with our air quality when it comes to other people. And then there's more of an enmeshment or an exchange and sympathy and resonance and relating and when we get wet and watery. In that sense, it's also where we have our karmic attachments, and water is where we have all sorts of psychic phenomena. The idea of just the psychic realm, the astral plane. Words that would come through with the waters is sensitive and abstract. There's a lot of, image that is in the water, how we can imagine things and the image. Air, to contrast, going back and forth, is kind of like the design, the architecture, the letter, the shape, the symbol. Water, though, in our water signs, thinking of those emotional soul components, we've got with Cancer, this kind of personal, our sense of past, where we come from, our parents, our roots, our home, what's familiar, and our kind of personal uh, karmas of sorts. Um, Scorpio then is when and dealing with our relationships with others, the exchanges that we've had with others, in that sense, how we've done business with others. And then Pisces is kind of like how we participated in the collective. It's more of a collective relationship, emotional karma. And all of them have a certain sensitivity and psychic awareness. The fire signs all deal with our sense of identity and spirit, and the same way that the air and the water both deal with relationships in a sense, earth and fire can be paired as a sense of just, just oneself, just the facts. And it's like the concrete 3D facts, and then the spark of spirit that animates us and makes us unique. Your personality, your identity is all wrapped up in the fire signs, on that spirit, that vitality, our sense of creativity, our desire, and intuition. Um, Intuition, as opposed to psychic phenomena, there's some nuances in them in the sense that psychic phenomena has got more of this image-based, feeling-based quality. Intuition has got kind of this more sparking, kind of instant knowing quality. They're similar but different. Some words that get wrapped in that we associate with fire is also passionate and dynamic. It's just, alive. And so in Aries, we've got that sense of raw vitality, that just instinctual, here I am, like just go do sense. Leo is where it becomes more, centralized, and we want to focus on what makes us, special, and our, own creative talent. And then Sagittarius, the identity becomes a little bit more mental as we kind of expand our identity into larger frameworks of cultural wholes and religious philosophies. So that's a base layer on these four elements. This next slide that I'm sharing is a grid that is a good comparison for all four of them. And as you can see, I've kind of color coded things a little bit. When I think of Earth, it's, green. Oop, just lost this line. Blue for water, air is yellow, and fire is red down on those levels. And then I've toggled some qualities up at the top, starting with just which elements are considered passive or yin. It would, or and then I have down and up. So this toggling, this binary of the passive yin down would be earth and water, and air are the active yang up. Air is moving, fire is moving. Water and earth, if it fills the container and it sits there, it's more inert, and so it will settle down. Air will lift up. Fire is like fanning up. So there's that kind of yin yang, black and white level. Then looking at the qualities of cold and hot and wet and dry, we've got with earth the qualities of being cold and dry, water, cold and wet, of course. Air is hot and wet. It's like moisture, it's like steam, it's like rising. And then fire is hot and dry. Um, and I actually may have something in me says I may have those mixed up. I could see fire being a little bit more wet and air being a little bit more dry. So that might even be a mistake on the slide. Then looking at the concrete and abstract, that is kind of mirroring something with the subjective level of things. And there, yes, that's another error on these slides. Apologies, but Earth is going to be more of the concrete level of things, and air is also of the concrete, basically the objective and subjective. Concrete is objective and abstract is subjective, and so those got mixed up because Earth and air are both concrete and objective, and water and fire are both abstract and subjective. They deal with the levels that are um, me, how I feel, my personality. Fire and water is the more subjective me qualities, where air and earth, the tangible nuts and bolts, and the thoughts and the ideas are more objectively, factually based. Earth, we can see a rock is visible. Water and air, both in this invisible. We can't see feelings, we can't see thoughts. Fire, visible. We can see when something is moving, animated, alive, versus dead. And so there's this visible quality to fire as well. Um, Earth is going to be matter and manifestations. Water is the image and the imagination. Air is the word and the articulation, the shape, the form, the symbol. Water is like the contents and the colors, and then matter is kind of like the uh the actual clay finished product that has that is the color and the forms and of this shape. And then the desire inspiration is fire. That is the creative catalyst, what the idea, what the original inspiration was, what you wanted to achieve. So it's this flow that goes from fire down to earth in the sense that something sparks us to into action. We want to achieve something, we want to do something, we want to create something. And so we architect, we articulate it, we name it, we shape it, we structure it, we blueprint it, or we form the blueprint, the architecture, and then we color it in, we feel, we play with it in our imagination, we walk it around, and then we take the physical actions and we do the things that continue to make all of that imprinted in concrete reality. So earth is the actual doing, water is our feeling about it, imagining about it. Air is the thinking, and then fire is just being. Fire, again, with our identity, is wrapped up with our personality. Our intellect is the air. Our mood is the water. And then our appearance is our earth, the way it presents. On these, there's also some axes in a chart, and I think about Earth being very much the icy and the midheaven, an axis of gravity, water being magnetic. It's got an attraction and a repulsion, very much like the north and south node axis of a chart. Circulation, an interface back and forth, I see very much with our ascendant and descendant. And then this electricity of fire, the electric axis of the vertex and the anti-vertex in a chart. Earth is the level of our body, water is our emotions, air is our thoughts, fire is our energy, our life force. Then in our states of matter, earth is solid, water is liquid, air is gas, and then fire is plasma. That works extremely well on like a scientific level. And then in the world of Tarot. Earth is the everything with the suits of pentacles. Water is everything of the suit of cups. Air is the suit of swords. And fire is the suit of wands. So this is a grid to think about. And again, I'm sorry about, I think fire is supposed to be wet and hot, and air is supposed to be hot and dry. And there's something about the dry qualities that are more concrete and the wet qualities that are more abstract. And then there is something about the um, nature of earth and air that is objective, water and fire that is subjective. Mhm. All right, looking at the signs that represent each of those four elements, the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn here, I think about them in a trinity working together. Taurus is this step, and if we start with Aries and like we're going around the wheel in this way, they have a certain order, but we can also consider them as their cardinal fixed mutable order. So for some elements, there's two elemental orders to look at. Cars, though, is about developing and growing our resources, our money, our stuff, our skills. We're accumulating it. Um, and and I'm going to leave the house thing alone, but it's this idea of developing our resources. Virgo then is the stage of the process where we're organizing, perfecting, and utilizing in the most efficient way possible those resources. We're sorting them, we're putting our resources to work. We're functioning. We're down here in Taurus, we're developing and accumulating the resources, the skills. Here we are practicing them in Virgo. And then Capricorn is about mastering those resources, mastering those skills as we apply the resources with sustained effort over time toward the attainment of a goal. It's slow and steady, it's fixed on the same attainment, the finished product. And so goal accomplishment and hard task and accomplishments on the physical world or in 3D reality are all accomplished and considered through Capricorn. So again, it's developing, using, and then mastering. I also can think about it with Capricorn being cardinal, and then we go to fixed with Taurus and mutable with Virgo. It's like with Capricorn, we're building the house. You put the house together, you decide to do all the hard work, all the plumbing, the electric, the everything, and you build the house in Capricorn. In Taurus, you enjoy the house. It's yours for its pleasurable qualities, and you're filling the house with the things that you love and value. It's all of the enjoyment of the house. And then Virgo is, all the things you have to do to keep up the house. It's the maintenance of the house. It's the function. It's all the things that need to work for the day-to-day routine to work effectively in the house. So that's the house metaphor for our earthly plane through Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. So those three levels are earth sign elemental journeys that cycle amongst the entire wheel. When we talk about air, we're getting into Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And starting with Gemini, Gemini is a stage that is about acquiring and distributing information for the purposes of learning and communicative coordination. It's two parties going back and forth about things. It's the travel, it's the uh, translation, it's learning the ABCs of things. It's learning how things add up, and then being able to apply that and present that with others to coordinate, to send messages, to communicate, to get ideas from one place to another. So all of that learning and communicating and articulation and all is happening there, kind of like learning the language of the land, learning the ABCs. Libra is more about how to socially engage and interface with others one-on-one. It's more of the refined, sophisticated social component, how to play nice, how to harmonize, how to resonate, how to be agreeable, how to be pleasant with an other, with someone else, how to enjoy someone else's company. Again, Gemini is just here to, understand what the other side is saying, get the idea back and forth, learning, understanding, transmitting back and forth, toggling the information. Um, Libra is harmonizing the information, is making the information fair, beautiful, agreeable, pleasant, all of those types of things. So it's how to be pleasant in a social way. Aquarius finishes up this air cycle with socially networking with a group to collaboratively advance a collective goal. Aquarius is the brilliant, eclectic, mad scientist of the group, and the wheel in a sense too. But it's this idea of all the different people and all sharing ideas together and the group or the hive mind. It's a group, it's an organization, it's a collaboration. And it's this networking quality where like we all, all of our minds thinking together like a think tank makes us brilliant. We invent new things, we blast off, we elevate ideas and advance socially fast and radically and all of these qualities by putting our heads together. Um, and so there's also a level. I would start with Libra as cardinal, and then Aquarius as fixed, and Gemini as mutable to finish this. And at one point, I used to think of Libra as the ears, Aquarius is the brain, and Gemini as the mouth. And I still say that to an extent, but I'll say with Libra, it's listening and cooperating. The Venusian quality, the passive qualities of Libra here, even though it engages and initiates social exchange, it is more about listening and agreeing and harmonizing and seeing what the other person likes and what they like about it. And so cooperating together in a pleasant way. So there's this listening or taking in. Aquarius is still the brain exchange. I see it like a tornado, an electric motherboard of information flashing on and off, and all of that. It's kind of like the electrical brain activity of a hive mind, processing fastly, calculating. And then Gemini is then I see with the mouth articulating, it's speaking it, it's sharing it, it's the marketing, well, marketing in a sense. Um, but I said over here reading, writing, and messaging, and that's still all the same thing. I mean, Gemini really is speaking and listening, the back and forth, all of it. But um, that's kind of a sense of how we can think about the airs, the input, and then the exchange and the processing, and then the uh, output. Next set of signs to consider is our water grouping, which is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And these are all emotional based. And with Cancer, we have our inner. Uh, oops, sorry, let fast forward. There, slide. Our nurturing inner personal emotions. So Cancer is like us on the inside, our inner personal emotional life, how we feel, and our personal sensitivity to our immediate environment. Cancers are, notorious for, you know, the vibe of a room, the vibe of the nest, the immediate environment. Um, Scorpio then is intense emotional experiences with or of others. It's just being keenly attuned to the emotions of others. So sensing and knowing and seeing, their emotional experiences and sharing, having those experiences with others and having a sensitivity to the emotional state of others. When the attention is focused on others, just having an in-depth perceptive quality of others' emotional states. Again, we started again with Cancer. It's about our self emotions, our inner personal emotions, our emotional thermometer. Scorpio is good at figuring out other people's emotional thermometer. Pisces is a compassionate emotional service and emotional sensitivity of the collective. Pisces often gets attributed with the sense of sorrow and that it can sense the collective, just existential pain and suffering, that the sense that creates charity, creates compassion, all of those qualities of, emotional caretaking, because it's very sensitive to the collective thermometer. It's also, very sensitive to those beautiful kind of like cathartic emotional miracle moments of the collective and such as well. But it's got that collective emotional vibe. So we can kind of see how those three relate in that personal sense, that dealing with the exchange and others more specifically, and their unique psychology, and then the collective commonality and oneness emotionally. Then thinking from Cancer being cardinal, Scorpio being fixed, and Pisces being mutable. And the cup is a motif that works quite well since it's that suit in Tarot too. But with Cancer, it's like filling the cup up with water. And in that sense, it's self-nurturing. You have to fill your own cup. It's self-care. It's how you fill your cup. It's what's filling your cup. What are you getting at home? What's in your environment filling you up? That's why cancers get moody when, something is, agitating that's filling them up. It's about filling ourselves up with that self-care and soothing, relaxing, comfort, all of that. Scorpio is then you've got a cup filled with water. And so it's the depth of that cup of water. It's all of the contents. It's the analysis of all of that water and what it's made of and the depth of it. So it's the substance of the water. And then Pisces is like pouring forth the water from a cup. And then even though Aquarius is the bearer, that selfless sense of caretaking and compassion and service, that Jesus Christ miracle magic, that Pisces quality of pouring forth and letting go of the water, surrendering the water, giving away the water, emptying the water, is all part of that elemental process. The last round is our fire signs, and so curious. I probably should have started with them because they do start the race, but hey, it's okay. That would be Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. You know how humble putting the best last, right? Since I'm a fire sign too. But Aries is raw instinctual action as identity and desire. Here in Aries, it's just like it's not the first sign for a mistake. It's bam, it's the beginning. It's new, it's raw, it's instinctual. It's just kind of that visceral sense of I am alive and I desire to do stuff, to have experience, to go forth, put my body in motion. And so it's that raw sense of desire, and it's my identity is that which I do. For an Aries, they are what they do, the experiences they've had, the adventures they've been on, the actual things they've done create the identity. Leo is a next stage in the process of identity formation where it's more centralized with a central core, that centrality that mirrors its relationship to the sun. And it's about our specialized talent and ego, enjoyment and fulfillment. That's, enjoying who we are and what's special about us, and also fulfilling and like shining and radiating the fullness of that quality, fulfilling it in that sense of sharing it and energizing others through our activation of who we are. That is our identity and desire in Leo. Leo is wanting to be and shine as this special creative force. And that's the desire. Sagittarius then is a sense of desire and identity that's based on cultured expansion of mental philosophy. This is where we get into more of the realm of ideas. In fact, if you notice with Sagittarius opposite Gemini, that is the axis of learning in a sense. And so we have this higher idea of what makes our identity bigger than us? How are we part of a bigger group, a bigger identity? And what's the same in that sense? What are the commonalities? What's true in a larger, bigger sense about who we are within a cultural context, within a global context? And so there's that sense of the identity being based more in our beliefs, is our identity and our desire there. With the fire triad, the first sign is cardinal, the second is fixed, and then mutable. And it really is with Aries, that beginning point again is sparking a flame, a new idea, a new action, just start and go. Leo is like a fully blazing fire. It's like a fire at full intensity. It's just, you can't miss it. It is just a big blazing fire, full of itself. And then Sagittarius is the idea of like flames, like catching and spreading throughout an area, like catching all of the other surrounding, material and wood on fire and just like spreading and like expanding that idea, that light, that energy out to a bigger radius. So that's part of the Sagittarius motive. The last thing I have, I think, to look at after we think about the signs, we've talked about what the four qualities, earth, air, fire, and water, are in a general sense. And then we've looked at how they play their part on the wheel through the zodiac, with each sign participating in an elemental cycle or two that way. The planets are also participating by being in certain signs, and the nature of each particular planet has kind of got an elemental affinity with it in a lot of cases. And so what I have here on this slide is what element best fits with each planet. And some of them could be, perhaps arguable, and some of them not so much so, but I'll try and explain the rationale with each. The sun, definitely a fire planet, I would think, and no one would argue with that. It's a big blazing ball of fire in the sky, literally. It is the ruler of Leo, which is a fire sign. It just wins the fire award. It is the idea of our fiery, again, identity shining and being central, the uniqueness of the human spirit, the human identity. The moon is a watery planet. The moon is about our subconscious, the nighttime, the sleeping part of ourself, our emotions, how we feel, our habitual rhythms. Moon is just so water. The water is affected by the moon. It's like it's all up in there. Moon rules Cancer, which is also a water sign. So all of those watery qualities, the moon and the water have qualities related to the past. And moon is really that part of us which is congealed. It's most familiar through our family, through the past, through our most immediate past lifetimes, and all of the moods and habits that have congealed the most into this expression that's most intimate, that our mood and our water point. Mercury is air. Mercury's most at home for sure in Gemini. The idea of, the trickster, back and forth information, flittering about, winged sandals, all of that, very air, mercurial, changeable, this way, that way. Communication, information, they go together like peas and carrots. So Mercury and air, are very, very much a fit. Venus is one where it gets abstract. Venus has rulership as the material girl in Taurus. And then we also have this idea of Venus ruling Libra, which is an air sign, and it's about, beauty and love. It's like love and money is very much what these two are. We also have Venus being exalted, this idea of like, unconditional love, and also when it's in Pisces. And there's something about Venus in any place that it's this beautifully attractive thing that excites us. It excites desire. So it has this quality of like inspiring fire. It gets things excited. And in a way, Venus really does have a way that it works well in any sign. Whereas we notice things like when Moon is a water emotional planet is in like an air sign, somebody might be a lot more mental, or rational with their emotions, whereas, or if it's an earth, more practical and grounded with their emotions. And then with Mercury, if Mercury is not in a good air sign, if it's in a water sign, someone can be a little fumbly with their words, or very poetic maybe, or artistic. But there's qualities where certain planets fit or don't fit in a certain element based on their nature. Since Venus is so many, she's really malleable in all the elements, and I attributed her most to wet earth. This sense of just voluptuous, smooth. I mean, you think about Venus, it's like the cosmic heat of sorts. But it's this sense of fullness, voluptuousness, um, like a statue or like a clay thing, but it's receptive, and it attractive, and that quality is much associated with Taurus as the main primary planet for it, I guess. But there's also quite a relational sense in which Venus represents a fairness and a beauty of ideas. Um, and then when Venus is in water, it's very much about just good feelings. And then in fire, we've got, very spicy, exciting type of Venus. But she's a little more complex. Back to something that's not Mars. Mars is super straightforward. And thinking about those first four planets, they really do follow the first four signs with their primary element, it seems. But then again, Mars is another fireball. It's the red planet. It is associated with Aries mostly, which is a fire sign. It is known for being the god of war, anger, heat, passion, drive, all of those qualities that just make Mars and fire go together. It's the sense of heat, inflammation, rage. The sun, while also being a fire sign, is more about the qualities of fire that illuminate, that shine a light on something, that express it, that warm it, that vitalize it, that feed it. It's a different side to fire, if you can follow me. Jupiter has a quality that is much like steam, which is much like the two signs it rules, fire and water through Sagittarius and Pisces. Just on a unrelated note with Jupiter, Jupiter has a forward growth, forward future type of quality, growth toward the future, enlargement, expansion, which is why Jupiter qualities are related to prophecy, seeing the future and having a futuristic aim through Sagittarius, or dreaming the future, and envisioning and imagining the future through Pisces. That the future is steam, and these fire and water both are spiritual elements, or more abstract elements that are subjective, this imagination and inspiration. It's like water being heated up and steamed and diffusing and spreading and getting bigger and bigger like a cloud, like a nebula. So that is Jupiter's elemental affinity, and Jupiter does okay everywhere. It's going to enlarge things and do its Jupiter thing. Saturn is definitely Earth. It's very hard. Cold and hard are some qualities associated with Saturn. It's like the bones, it's like the rock, it is all of those things. So we said that Venus is like the voluptuous, rich type of Earth that's, wet and just, voluptuous. Saturn is dry, it's the bones, and Venus is the meat, really, in so many ways. Saturn's earthy quality is the structure, the foundation, the building blocks, um, the parameters, time and space, at its most abstract sense. But that's the qualities of Saturn and Earth. Uranus is lightning in a bottle. It is the ruler of lightning. It is totally electricity, which gives it a fiery sense. It is home mostly in Aquarius, which is an air sign, but Aquarius is a unique, weird air sign, and it is definitely electricity, which we could think of as like air, exciting and sparking. It's like the air, the quality of the air as you rise and rise, and the atmosphere is becoming more and more volatile, dynamic, and unstable. All those particles doing all of their sciencey thing up in the air sparks into electricity, which, then if it strikes a tree and whatnot, creates a fire. Lightning is the fire of the sky in a sense. So electricity, Uranus is all about electricity. Neptune is another clear water planet, and it's actually next to Moon, the only pure water planet. Neptune is about our dreams. It is all of the liquidy qualities, the imagination, film and photography, magic, sleight of hand, deception. It's this liquid, slippery quality. It's also miracles, psychic phenomena, channeling, mediumship. It's all of these kind of places that blend and blur the boundaries between what's real and what's not. All of those qualities that run it as being very karmic, very watery, emotional. It's got this kind of, um, it's got a fantasy, fantastical type of quality, um, phantasmagorical, changing and shifting. It does have tinges of sorrow and bliss, both of those, these kind of blissing out and kind of escapisms and musical qualities all wrapped up in Neptune's magic. And last but not least, we've got Pluto, and Pluto is really the first one that was kind of a complete stumper in a sense when I thought about its element. And I said, all or none. But if we got to play the game, there's something I would call magnetic fire about Pluto, in the sense that Pluto is this force, we think about Hades, death, transformation, intensity. It really intensifies things, and kind of pressurizes them into activity. It's definitely associated with volcanoes and eruptions from deep underneath. And it's got this moth to a flame karmic quality of like the goddess necessity that pulls us towards our unconscious desires. And sometimes those things that are destructive or self-destructive, just so that we will transform them. So it draws us in and inflames us. It kind of gives us a sense of power and not compassion, power and passion, that kind of pushes us towards things that either transform or just erupt in some way. So it's got that cathartic type of process that it plays. And as I'm finishing up with that, looking up there, we've got one question. It says the scientists have denounced Pluto as a planet. Does that still affect things? It doesn't matter what you call it. Pluto, I guess whether it's a planet or not, it's slow. It runs really slow in its course. It's a base note, and there are planets slower than it. The next one is called Eris, Eris, and it has a mythos about it. And then there's things like Sedna and Varuna, um, and they're moving so slow. Once you get to that point, they're almost like fixed stars in the sky. And it's really just about, do you have something next to it that's activating it? But Pluto is moving. It's got a story, for sure. That's a slow base note story. It would be silly to ignore Pluto. There's a whole sect of astrology called evolutionary astrology that's based primarily on Pluto and its phasal relationship with Mars and all these related things. um, Pluto is still very active. And like, just to think, going out furthest, Eris, pretty much for everybody, Eris has been in the same sign of Aries our entire lifetime. So it has moved, and we'll see it change probably. But it's staying in the same sign. You get slower than that, that's even more the case. That's why they're stars. Pluto, we're watching it about to change into Aquarius, and we've seen it through a few, and so it's got a lot it does still say. Um, and so yeah, it sounds and Pluto can definitely be a favorite. Pluto and Saturn are some of my favorites too. But how if it does change things? Would all of Pluto's elements go to another planet? Um, I'm not sure what that means exactly. If it does change things, would all of Pluto's elements go to another planet? Um, no, that doesn't change anything. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't affect things in that sense. Pluto is going to continue to be and represent everything of the theme and archetype of Pluto, of Hades, everything that it has been culturally, consciously significant of, would not transmit to another planet. It's curious how the planets all interact with our consciousness and their discovery, because if you think about it, at some point, it used to just be Saturn. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were not on the board. And so it's interesting that the same things were happening and experiences would still be indicated by things going on with other planets, that we could have seen a little bit more poignantly if we had known about those outer planets' involvements too. But it's like once they're on the table, it's all the lights are turned on there. A planet we don't know about or a force that we don't know, it can still be on the table and doing its thing unconsciously. It's almost like Schrodinger's cat. Um, and just as another weird oddity, there is a planet known as Vulcan that is an energetic, esoteric planet that is hypothetical, that, may or may not really be there as an energetic disturbance or something, somewhere between, I think, around Mercury and the Sun. Um, and it plays a role in a spiritual, esoteric sense even though it's not on the board for anybody to talk about in 3D. So always more to see within planets. So I think that's it on here. I'll see if there are any questions in the room from either of you ladies. And they can be about anything element related or astrology in general or anything whatsoever. I'll even stop sharing the screen for a second. Awesome. Just some comments. Cool. So yeah, I hope somebody got at least a new tidbit about the elements and then how and why they act the way they do in those signs and planets and thinking about now if you think about the element of the planet, you can think about how, fire planet is probably going to do pretty darn well in a fire sign and might be, you know, different in, getting it wet in a water sign and all those different types of things that can happen. And just thinking about them in a more symbolic, abstract way can give you a lot of metaphoric insight on personality, psychology, and karma, essentially. So, all right, well, I'm going to pull this to an end. It just actually is getting right up on 8, so it was perfect timing. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording.